I got to work at a startup and got to see them raise a bunch of money really fast, spend a bunch of money really fast, and then go out of business really fast. That kind of led me thinking, okay, I think I need to start my own company. Gamefly still exists. So the idea was you could play 20 to 40 games a year for the cost of maybe 4 or 5 games. We filed to go public in 2010. Market dynamics had shifted a little and we ended up not going public. I want to go in a different direction with streaming and digital. The board didn't necessarily want to do that. So I saw a different path and our paths didn't align. I knew of career companies because when I worked in the mailroom 20 years prior to this at CA, everything they could mess up, they messed up.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I could do this better. Then realized that there was not a lot of players on a large scale. And so I was like, okay, that could be an interesting play. A national provider like a FedEx or a UPS, but for same day.
You guys have acquired 8 companies in 10 years. Most of them have been fairly successful acquisitions.
If you're being totally objective, I'd say 6 of the 8 were good. 1 was great and 1 was not so good. I had to let a lot of people go that had worked with for a very long time and respected and liked and had a history with. But ultimately, like, my job is to steward the ship, what's best for the business, not what's best for me or any individual at the company.
I'm your host, Jason Burns, and we'll be bringing you the stories from the front lines, everything from last mile to the first mile in the most dynamic industry in today's supply chain. If you like the content we're producing, the videos we're releasing, the stories we're telling you, give us a like, subscribe to our channels, give us some feedback on how we can improve your last to first journey.
My name's Sean Spector. I'm CEO, co-founder of Dropoff. You're watching Last to First, the podcast.
If there's one thing we know about last mile logistics, it can be the most challenging but critical component of any supply chain. But Dropoff, they make it easy. I sold my business to Dropoff a few years ago and had a firsthand experience to see why they're the leading provider of same-day delivery solutions in the healthcare, retail, and industrial sectors. National brands trust Dropoff to deliver same-day solutions with transparency and timely deliveries to satisfy their needs. Rated as one of the best places to work by the Austin Statesman and a proud recipient of the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies in America, Dropoff is transforming the $30 billion same-day delivery industry. Call 888-DROP-OFF or go to dropoff.com and let them serve your needs. Now back to Last to First.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our next episode of the Last to First podcast, where we bring you the latest and greatest innovators who are moving this space from last to first. Today's a treat. It's not very often you get to interview the person who bought your business, who also let you go from that company a couple of years later. This is one of the best and brightest minds in the final mile delivery space, and I'm very excited to have with us today the founder and CEO of Dropoff Inc., Mr. Sean Spector. Sean, welcome back to the podcast.
Hello, sir.
How you doing?
To be here.
Good. So, as I said in the intro, right, we have some history here.
We do have history.
Little history there.
Good history.
Good history, really good history. And one of the things, I think back to when I first came to Austin. This is December of 2019,
Yeah.
when we were kind of in that courting phase of the M&A acquisition of QCS. And I remember being here and my parents with me and our business partner, and we had a really good meeting. And I went out that night in Austin, and just kind of walked around the town. First time ever being here, and something just struck me, like, this is a place where I'm going to be at. And the second thing was, after meeting with you and the team, I didn't know if the transaction would go through or not, but something told me that this guy's going to be in my orbit some kind of way for many years to come. So it's a full circle moment for me to have you back.
It's awesome.
And be on the podcast with me.
I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah. So we got a lot to talk about.
Sure.
But before we get into your story and Dropoff, just describe Dropoff for us.
Sure.
Where's Dropoff located, its footprint, size? Just give us a little bit of taste of the business, and then we'll jump back into the story.
Sure. So Dropoff is now 10 years old. So co-founded the company in 2014. We're headquartered here in Austin, Texas, but we're spread across the whole U.S.
Yeah.
So yes, we're based here, but all our people are in all the markets that we're operating. We're in 42 markets roughly in 22 states as of today.
Nice.
We do last mile, same day delivery. We do it for healthcare. We do it for retail. We do it for industrial. Those are the 3 categories that we focus on.
Got it. So in 10 years, 42 markets.
Yes.
That's impressive growth.
Yes. And some markets are big, and some are medium sized, and some are small. All markets are profitable. So That's something that's taken a while.
Yeah.
But we did it. We got very profitable during COVID, and then not so profitable, and now we're back to being profitable.
Okay. We'll get to that COVID story because I was around for that journey a little bit.
You were.
But okay, so thank you for that. Let's get into Sean Spector. Right?
Sure.
Where are you from? Give us a little taste of your upbringing. Kind of you're a serial entrepreneur. You've done several different things that I want to talk about. But your early days, like, was there someone or something that influenced you that you said you want to be an entrepreneur at a young age?
Yeah, but I didn't think I knew it at a young age. My father was an entrepreneur. My father was a child psychologist. He got his PhD in child psychology. He went kind of the normal route where you go work at a hospital or you go work at a clinic. And he realized that wasn't for him. And so he ended up opening up a school for kids with learning disabilities. This is back in the 70s, where most of those kids were not. Most of those kids would be labeled something that they shouldn't have been labeled.
Yeah.
They weren't properly diagnosed for a variety of reasons. And so he opened up a school for kids with learning disabilities. And this is, pre-ADHD, before he even was really talking about dyslexic or autism or any of that stuff. And so he opened up a series of these schools. The first one did well, so he opened a second. The second one did well. He opened a third. I think he got up to like 4 or 5 schools.
Okay.
So I kind of saw that journey and the ups and downs of it. But it seemed more interesting than like a corporate job.
Yeah. You probably saw him early mornings, late nights. You got a ton of people.
He's definitely a workaholic.
Yeah.
Which is good and bad.
What's the good part of that?
I mean, the good part, he was very driven, right? And when you were with him, you got quality time. But when you weren't with him, he was working.
Yeah. I think that's one thing. I certainly want to get your perspective on it. But growing up in an entrepreneurial family, saw the same thing with my dad. Workaholic. 6-7 days a week. So you don't see him a lot during the week. But both my parents are entrepreneurs, but they made time to make the moments matter.
Yep.
But it's stressful.
It's hard. Stressful. And my mom worked in my dad's business, like your mom worked in business with your dad. And so that also has another dynamic to it, because there's work at work and then work comes home, right? And they're both talking about work, the good and the bad. And so, got to see both that. Yeah. My wife and I don't work together. So, man, which is good.
I said he's one of the smartest people in the space, right? Okay, so you grow up, you see your father open a school, your mother's working, but I know you started your career off wanting to be in the entertainment space.
Yep.
Film.
Yep. So I went to film school, studied film, got my degree in film theory and criticism, did production work after college, worked on movies. Summers during college, worked on movies. Thought that's what I was going to do. Got a job in the mailroom at Creative Artists Agency, which is a talent agency in Los Angeles, and now one of the top. I mean, back then it was one of the top. Now it might be the number one.
Yeah.
And was in the mailroom, and I thought that was going to be my path to being in the entertainment industry. I thought, okay, maybe I'll be an agent. And just realized it wasn't for me. It's not what I wanted.
Yeah.
And I got lucky. I got to work at a startup, and I got to see kind of like how a startup was operating this would be back in 99.
Okay.
Kind of the dot-com boom.
Okay.
So I got to work at a startup and got to see them raise a bunch of money really fast, spend a bunch of money really fast, and then go out of business really fast. But it was a great lesson.
Yeah.
And that kind of led me thinking, okay, I think I need to start my own company.
So you have some mailroom experience, which I'm sure you maybe has some tie back to once you got to Dropoff.
Yes.
But probably your first experience seeing a courier or somebody delivering something.
Yes.
But then you went to the startup.
Yes.
And it failed fast. Right.
Yes.
So if you're going to fail, might as well fail fast. So
right.
Good part. But I suspect at that time the juices started flowing. Right. So
sure.
So you started feeling like you could actually execute better than maybe what the leadership was doing at that time.
Yeah. You know what I've realized, and I don't look like it and I don't act like it, but there's an adrenaline component to a startup, and there's an adrenaline component to like some of the things I like to do outside of work. Yeah. And so I wouldn't call myself an adrenaline junkie, but I do like the adrenaline high, and startups give you that.
Yeah.
And I don't think corporate jobs offer that.
Yeah.
And so it itches a scratch, or it scratches an itch that I have.
Okay. And so your first startup, I don't know if it's your first one, but I know the one that you had a lot of success with and became known for was Gamefly.
Correct.
All right, so give us the background of how that came about.
I was working at CA. I wasn't enjoying myself. And I had a friend who I'd worked with previously and called him up, and he was working at Electronic Arts and said, hey, I got this idea. You know, it's Netflix for video games. And he's
Pre-Netflix, though.
Yeah. Oh, it's early days of Netflix.
Okay.
Like, it was early days of Netflix.
Okay.
But so the early days of Netflix is they ship disc in the mail. It wasn't streaming.
Right.
And called him up and said, hey, I got this idea. What do you think? He's like, I love it. Let's do it. So we left our jobs and we started Gamefly. You know, but that's like step one is leaving your job. Step two is like, okay, what's the business? What's the model? Does it make sense financially? Can we go raise capital to help us fund this?
Yeah.
This was not a business you'd want to bootstrap because it requires a lot of inventory.
That inventory, yeah.
So we got lucky. We ended up raising a couple of $1 million on a seed round.
Okay.
And we were kind of off to the races and immediately just saw product market fit.
So the raise, right? So it doesn't always happen that way.
Yep.
That easy. Was it because of your background experience in the space? You didn't have much of that.
I didn't have any of that.
Yeah.
So we met a guy who became a co-founder with us.
Okay.
And he had come off a very successful kind of rise and fall startup. So he had a lot of battle scars, and he was a very smart guy, and he joined up with us. And, you know, my partner and I raised a little capital, but he helped us raise the majority of the capital.
Got it.
And so really owe a lot to him. And we got very lucky that basically the second or third meeting we had with the VC, they said they wanted to do the whole thing.
Wow.
And so it was not a typical, like it took us 6 or 12 months to, you know, knock on 50 doors to find somebody.
Yeah. So I'm just curious. So how do you go about getting the inventory? These are video games, right? So you have to. I mean, how do you even?
Well, when you start out, it's small. We don't have a lot of subscribers, so we're buying them from mostly distributors.
Okay.
But once you get to a certain size, you can start buying direct from the publishers.
Okay.
And so the publishers are like the EAs, the Activisions, the Nintendos, etc. But in the early days, we're buying from like middlemen.
And this is so the model was subscription.
Yes.
And you would mail.
You'd sign up on a website, and you can still do this today. Gamefly still exists.
Really?
You can go sign up for $20 roughly a month. You get 2 discs in the mail. And when you're done with one, you send it back, and you got a queue, a list of games. And then when they get it back, they send you your next one. Yeah. And you just kind of have this endless cycle of video games. And so the idea was, you know, you could play 20 to 40 games a year for the cost of maybe 4 or 5 games. And so the other sort of hypothesis was, hey, gamers want to own games. They just don't want to play them. So if they find a game they like, they want to own it. So we came up this like try before you buy. So you get Halo, you love it, you want to own it. You go to the website and click keep it, and now that copy's yours, and then we'll ship you out the case.
Smart. Okay, so the shipping side of it, right?
Yes.
Because that's tricky, right?
Yes.
It's not an easy thing to do. It sounds easy, but at that time, I think you were using the post office. Or
There was no true rental subscription software back in 2002.
Yeah,
what we're talking about. So we had to write all that software. You know, all the games that we bought from distributors. So we had to build out little warehouses. And you would buy the games hoping somebody would want to rent them. Now, the nice thing about a queue, people would build a list. Could be 10 deep, could be 20 deep. So they kind of told you what they wanted before they got it. And so you use that queue data to understand what truly is your demand.
Okay.
Right? Like, do 100 people have Call of Duty in their queue, or do 10,000 people have Call of Duty?
And it helps.
So that helps you determine your buying.
Got it.
And so it's kind of neat because you kind of know before the customer walks in what most of the customers want.
Got it. And how long did it take for you guys to start turning profit in that business? Is it pretty immediate, or
no? That's a lot of investment in technology and people and capital. I think so. We started the company in 2002. I think we got profitable 7 years in, roughly.
Okay.
It's kind of ironic. It's almost the same trajectory as Dropoff. So it took about the same amount of time Gamefly took 6 or 7 years. Dropoff took 6 years.
That's pretty impressive. So is that normal, you would say, for?
Most startups never get profitable. So it's not normal.
Not normal, right?
Most startups go out of business.
Yeah.
Most that don't go out of business probably don't get profitable, and sometimes they get bought. So a lot of times startups get bought before they ever make a dollar.
Yeah, yeah. Now you know this because not just you've kind of struck gold twice, which we'll get to, but you also now invest. You're an angel investor in certain companies.
Yes.
So have you been able to take a lot of your experience from operating Dropoff today and apply it to a lot of success from an angel investing standpoint?
I mean, so angel investing for us has been successful, but a lot of it's luck. A lot of it's just you're betting on the person and the idea.
Yeah.
And, you're betting the jockey, not the horse. So, like, if somebody's idea you think is a good idea, but ultimately you don't think they're the one to execute it, you probably shouldn't bet on that. But, if I were betting on you, I'd be betting on you because I know you'll figure it out. Idea 1 may not be ultimately where it ends up. It could be idea 2, idea 3, or whatever.
Right.
But, it just depends.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of it's luck. And as far as like being able to offer insights, advice, it depends on, does that person want that?
Yeah.
Some people do, some people don't.
Yeah, yeah. Personalities of executives can be all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so let's finish up the Gamefly. So 7 years in, 6-7 years in, you guys turned profit.
Yeah.
Gamefly is still around today.
It is.
Wildly successful.
It was, yes.
How did it was?
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot smaller now.
Yeah, yeah. But tell me about the exit side for you. So I know you left Gamefly at some point, and you'll get to the drop-off side. But how did that end?
Yeah. So we filed to go public in 2010.
Okay.
Market dynamics had shifted a little, and we ended up not going public. We ended up still growing a lot for the next couple of years. And I think in 2012, I felt like I've been doing this for 10 years. I kind of want to go in a different direction with streaming and digital. And, the board didn't necessarily want to do that, which is fine.
You saw the future where...
Yeah, I knew it was going to go fully digital,
Yeah.
even though the discs are still around today, which is kind of crazy. I just literally got like the new Call of Duty Black Ops 6 on a disc today, or a couple of days ago. So I kind of saw a different path, and sort of our paths didn't align, so it kind of went separate ways. So I left in 2013.
Okay.
We had moved to Austin, Texas the year before, so I was commuting back and forth LA to Austin. And I knew ultimately I want to start another company, and Austin I thought was a great place to do it. It was a great ecosystem for entrepreneurs and startups. And so I thought I would take a year off and figure out what the next thing was, and ended up stumbling onto the courier industry.
Yeah, yeah. So as I understand the story, you were trying to deliver something to an attorney, and kind of going online, and
Yes.
kind of fell into all the traps of a bad courier process and cycle, right? So, and that's what spurred the idea for you to found Dropoff.
Yeah. So I had to send something from my house, 20 minutes west of downtown to an attorney downtown. I knew of courier companies because when I worked in the mailroom 20 years prior to this at CA, we were like the in-house courier company. And when we got super busy, we would outsource stuff to a local courier business. And so I was familiar with courier services. So I did what anyone do. You go to Google, you do a search, Austin courier companies, found several, called several, a bunch of crummy websites, called several. The one that sounded the most reliable on the phone was not the cheapest, but sounded the most reliable. And they screwed everything up, from the pickup to the delivery, to the billing, to the proof of delivery. And just everything they could mess up, they messed up.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I could do this better. I could figure out technology to help make this better. I could level up the service. And then realized that there was not a lot of players on a large scale. There were lots of mom and pops in this space, and there were very few regional and very few, if any, at that time, national.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, that could be an interesting play. a national provider like a FedEx or a UPS, but for same day, that could be interesting.
This is 2014.
Correct.
Okay. And so your initial, just walk me through kind of step one. What happened? You
Step one, do a bunch of research, realize that there's an opportunity. Step two, put together a deck, to sort of pitch deck on why we're different, what's the problem that we're going to solve, how we're going to solve it, how much capital do we need to kind of prove this out over the course of 12, 24 months to see if this is really something that could get traction. We ended up raising a little over, like $2.5 million to go prove this out. And very quickly we saw that there was customer pain, that the traditional model wasn't serving everybody the way those customers wanted to be served, and that technology could make life easier for everybody. And
did you start organically, or did you?
So originally we started organically, and then about a month or two into it, after raising our first seed round, we ended up buying a local business here in Austin with 3 founders, 2 bike couriers, and 1 dispatcher.
Okay.
And they had some drivers, and really good guys. And they joined us. So there was like 6 or 7 of us to start, and 3 of them, and kind of all joined forces, and realized that there was, 20, 30, 40 customers, and we could go talk to all of them. What's the good? What's the bad? What do you like? What do you not like? How does this work? What if we did this? Would that be better? Would that be interesting? And then we kind of parallel path building out all our own software.
Yeah.
And that took about 6 months to build out the software, from May till December.
Okay.
I think December we launched our platform in 2014 and had our first customers, and we migrated those old customers onto the new platform.
Yeah. How important were those early customer conversations?
Oh, huge. Yeah, because what those will do, they'll either validate things or they'll nullify things.
Yeah.
Right? And so you might have a bunch of great assumptions, and probably some are right and probably some are wrong. And the sooner you can find that out, the better.
Right.
And so those customer conversations led us to answers much quicker. Also, buying a small local business led us to a lot of answers much quicker. Oh, this is how dispatch works. Well, why does it work that way? Could you do it this way? What if it was visual? What if it wasn't just text-based? A bunch of things that we kind of solved pretty quickly.
Yeah. I remember, not the same, but when I first joined QCS, I probably spent the first 3 months just asking why.
Yes.
Like why? And it pissed my dad off quite a bit, because this is, 20 years into a business he's run. I'm like, this doesn't make any sense.
Right, but you're in it. You're so close to it. Sometimes it's hard to see the forest through the trees. And so it takes a fresh perspective, somebody from the outside coming in and saying, hey, stop. Why do we do it this way? Maybe that's the right way to do it.
Yeah.
But it's good to ask and understand, and maybe there is a better way.
Yeah. You ever heard of the meatloaf syndrome? So, quick story. So there was a a daughter and a mother in the kitchen, and the mom was teaching the daughter how to make meatloaf. And mom prepares the meatloaf, puts it in the pan, cuts the sides off, and they're about to put it in the oven. The daughter says, why'd you cut the sides of the meatloaf off? She said, I don't know. It's called grandmother. Grandma gave me the recipe. It's called grandma. Called grandma. Grandma, why'd you cut the sides of the meatloaf off? I don't know. It's called great grandma. They called great grandmother, who's still living. And she says, I cut the sides off because my oven was so small I couldn't fit in there. I don't know why y'all still cutting it off, right? But it's the point of no one had thought to ask why for so many generations. Right. And it's, as soon as you can get to that why, the better off you can be for the future of the business in this case. All right, so you acquire the company, get the customer feedback.
Yep.
And now you kind of, and technology was one of the critical components of Dropoff's hypothesis, right? You want to have your own proprietary technology.
Correct.
That you could use to scale customers to just grow this national footprint.
Yes.
What happens the first handful of years, first 5 years?
First 5 years, so we started in Austin, Texas. I'd say year 1, year 2, we opened up Houston, then we opened up Dallas and San Antonio.
Is it all organic?
Yeah, all organic. Okay. And then we kind of have these 4 points of, Central Texas, North Texas, right? The neat thing about Texas, you got 4 cities that are fairly sizable, all relatively close, which isn't the case in all states. And so that created some leverage. You could move people around, right? You could hire somebody in Houston, but if you needed them in Austin, they could get to Austin in 2 hours or whatever. So that was an interesting kind of dynamic that we hadn't planned, but kind of benefited from that. We ended up doing our first acquisition was in Dallas. A mom and pop courier company, been around for 10 plus years. Nice business. I'm trying to think, we did that probably like in 2016, 2017.
Okay.
Probably 2017. What came with that was, a fairly sizable business compared to us.
Yeah.
Probably, 5 times our size or 4 times our size. So it was much bigger than us, and we were the small guy behind the big guy. But what also came with that was a good team with a lot of experience, which we had some experience, but we didn't have a lot.
Right.
And also came with that a couple of key customers. And the hypothesis was, hey, if we could buy this business and we could buy these customers and we could do a good job servicing them, maybe better than before or as good, could we get them to expand in other markets with us? And so the courier company that we bought was only in Dallas. Could we get these customers to expand to Houston, or could they expand to Austin or San Antonio or somewhere else outside of Texas? And that was kind of the hypothesis of why we'd want to buy somebody.
Yeah.
And we were able to prove that out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So that those key customers started expanding with us, both in Texas and outside of Texas over the next couple of years.
Got it. And obviously, I learned a lot of M&A, all my M&A work from working at Dropoff. But I know one of the things that you taught me, and that we did when we looked at a number of acquisitions, is identifying what are the key customers that we can scale beyond our market, right?
Yep.
Just I want to get into an M&A conversation because I know to date you guys have acquired how many companies now?
Companies.
8 companies now.
Yeah.
So 8 companies in 10 years.
Yes.
Pretty aggressive. Most of them have been fairly successful acquisitions.
Yeah, I mean, if you're being totally objective, I'd say 6 of the 8 were good. 1 was great and 1 was not so good.
Yeah. And what are the critical things you're looking at when you go to acquire a company?
So, well, first and foremost, is the business profitable? Does it have good margins? Are those margins sustainable? Mm-hmm. Meaning, can they stay where they are, or have they been pumped up for some reason? Is the customer base growing, or is it flat, or is it declining? Mm-hmm. Do you believe you can expand the customer base or take those customers to other markets that you're already in?
Yeah.
And is the owner operator, because they've all been owner operator businesses, is he or she truly motivated to sell? Because you don't want to date. You don't want to go through a process and then get to the altar and then have it fall apart.
Yeah.
So you want someone that's motivated to sell, because otherwise you're not going to get a deal done.
Yeah. Yeah, that dating experience, we probably dated in our situation after COVID kind of...
Yeah, we dated longer than we probably would have if it wasn't for COVID.
Yeah. But I think it's important because it got a chance for you guys to get to know us and our team.
Out.
Yeah. And
all got to know each
versa.
other better.
Yeah.
And we also got to see each other kind of in a crisis. How did you guys react? How did we react?
Yeah. I can remember some late nights calling and you're like, how would you solve this?
Yes, I remember.
I'm up the creek right now.
I remember.
Good problems, right? We're blowing up, but it was definitely stressful times.
Yeah.
But the other thing I think is important, I tell other owners who are considering selling, like that process is just as much for you as it is for the buyer.
Yes.
Like, so I remember asking maybe just as many questions, or right there what you guys asked. I want to really understand, because at that time, for us it was we were 35, 36 years old in business, and second generation owner, parents still in the business. A lot of factors involved. A lot of personalities involved.
Family emotions.
A lot of family emotions involved. Yeah. And it was during COVID, right? During the height of COVID. So there's a lot of things at play. But first and foremost, we want to make sure that we found someone that we're going to be good to our people, right? That's the biggest asset you have in any organization. And,
yes.
I'm happy to say that Dropoff has done a phenomenal job and take care of all of our staff. So
thank you.
But I just wanted to get your thoughts on...
Fired you, though.
We'll get to that.
I didn't really fire you.
Yeah. Well,
I offered you a different kind of job.
You did.
You turned me down.
It did. Yes. Yeah. That dog wasn't gonna hunt. But we did. But so for a couple years there. Obviously, I was working side by side with you and doing a
You
lot
and I
of
worked very
things.
closely together.
Yeah, we're a lot, and what I appreciate about it, really, the selfish side of that acquisition. What I wanted for me personally was to get with a big organization, to a tech forward organization, someone that saw the future of same day delivery, and to put myself on maybe a faster track to get to the next level. So certainly, you were critical to that. Working with you and your background, the team, and so. Not to make this I'm just praising Sean here, but it was a great experience that I got a chance to get exposed to other aspects of the industry that I had been a part of all my life, but had never really experienced directly. The financial side, the M&A side, national clients.
Yep.
Working in a fairly large organization. I think when I was there, it was, in terms of staff, not even driver staff, it was well over 100 some people, maybe.
Yes. I think we got a peak 2022, got to about 180 people.
Yeah.
185.
Yeah, 185 people.
That's a lot of people.
Yeah. How do you manage that many people?
It's hard. I mean, you don't, right?
Yeah.
You have to hire good people to help you manage those people. And we had some really good people. So, I mean, we were able to do it. But it's hard. And look, as a founder, nobody, as much as everybody cares about the business, nobody's going to care about it as much as the founder.
Yeah.
And because it's your baby.
Yeah.
And so, it's hard. And I'm probably over the years was probably too much of a micromanager on some things and not a micromanager on other things. So it's taken 10 years, I think, really. Maybe it's taken 9 years to really get to where I wanted to be with the business.
Yeah.
And so now we're in a really good spot.
Yeah.
And it's really dialed in right now. And there's always room to fix things and improve things. But for the most part, we're really dialed in.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into the nuts and bolts of the business. I think a lot of our audience likes to hear the details of how it works, how the software,
How the sausage gets made.
Yeah, how's it get made? So, I know technology is one component.
Mm-hmm.
There's people, there's processes, right? From a tech standpoint, the hypothesis from day one was to use it as an engine to grow the business, right? I want you to tell us kind of where that evolution of the technology, the vision, because I know it's changed over the years.
Yep.
And it seems like it's been, now you've kind of got it's dialed in, as you said.
Yes.
Talk about how you use it to grow, and then also what happened to where you are now, where you're maybe.
Yeah. So from day one, we were designing and building and iterating our own technology. And so we felt back in 2014 that the existing, tech stack or software for the courier industry was behind the curve. It was out of date. Mm-hmm. And I think the people that were at those companies in 2014 will tell you the same thing.
Yeah.
And so we wanted kind of a tech first experience. We wanted, similar to an Uber, we wanted you to be text when it was on its way. We wanted you text you when it was delivered. We wanted you to be able to track it on a map in real time. We wanted to, dispatch it visually internally on our end. And we wanted to provide a really good front-end experience for the customers. Super easy website. You could place an order in 10, 15 seconds if you had to do it manually.
Dashboards.
Dashboards internally for us to operate the business. Just all those things didn't really exist, so we had to build them. I mean, it's similar to Gamefly. The subscription rental software didn't exist. We had to build it. So we spent 9 years building technology from the moment we started the business up until middle of last year. And early last year made the decision to migrate away from our proprietary technology and go to a third-party platform. And there was a variety of things at play. There was, hey, we need to get this business profitable again because the big COVID business that we had sort of gained, we had now lost. Mm-hmm. And so if we didn't start figuring out ways to save money, the business was at risk. So that was part of it. The other part of it was that, iterating and operating technology is expensive. And so, and it never ends. It's as you grow, it grows. And so I wasn't seeing the leverage from the tech that I hoped after 9 years we would have started to see.
Yeah.
And so that also weighed into the decision. I think ultimately also we were an operating company for the same day. We were a sales engine to drive sales, and now we were also a technology business. And so you're kind of running 3 businesses, and it's hard to do 3 well.
Yeah.
And so if something's got to give, well, we're a courier business, so we have to operate, and we need new customers, so we got to sell. And so if we're going to have to get rid of one of the legs of the stool, technology seemed like the place to go.
Yeah.
And also, the tech in 2014 wasn't very good. The tech in 23 had gotten much better.
Got it.
And so we migrated to a third-party platform. It didn't have everything we had built. It had a lot of what we had built, but it also had things that we had never been able to build yet. So there was, trade-offs. There was some good, there was some bad. It was the right decision for the business. It was a very hard decision for me to make. I had to let a lot of people go that I had worked with for a very long time and respected and liked and had a history with. But ultimately, my job is to steward the ship, what's best for the business, not what's best for me or any individual at the company.
Yeah. That's oftentimes that's a hard place for owners, right? As they say, it's a dark place. It's lonely at the top, and that's when he fired me. So y'all know,
That's when I offered you a different job.
I would stop that. All right, but no, but on a serious note, I know that was
Which you kind of do what I offered you, just do it for a different side of the business.
that's fair. That's fair. But I know just going through that process, I've been in a version of that in my career early. We lost a big account, and I had to let people go, and that's in these people I have been known all my life too. So that's not easy.
Sucks.
That sucks.
It's the worst part of the job.
It's the worst part of the job, but necessary.
Yes.
And if you don't make that decision as an owner,
you can't live to fight another day sometimes. Sometimes you run out of money. Sometimes nobody wants to fund you anymore. Sometimes your customers start to bail on you. You got to make what's the best decision. With the amount of information you've got, you got to make pretty quick decisions at a startup.
how do you know, just from your experience and obviously investing in companies, how do you know when a leader has that in them? Because to me, we connect on sports a lot too. I'm a former athlete, played quarterback, for most of my career. There's a different level of when you're the guy.
Yep.
You have to. Leadership is about managing loss in the way, right? Somebody's got to set that tone.
Yep.
But everyone doesn't have the ability to look someone in the eye and have those tough conversations.
Yep. I don't know. I had two really good parents. I like to think I'm smart. Read a lot, studied a lot. But a lot of it's just trial and error.
Yeah.
Right. I thought I was going to be a filmmaker, right? And so what I was interested in was being a director. So director's kind of like the captain of the ship. He's like the CEO, or she is the CEO of the movie.
Yeah.
And so you're interacting with all the different departments. You're making quick decisions. And so I had made films from the time I was 10 till 25, maybe even 30 even. And so I was kind of already doing that. I didn't really know that. I didn't know that was preparing me to be a CEO.
Yeah.
But it certainly did.
Yeah.
Because you got to get people motivated to do something. In that case, it was to make a film or a short film. Mm-hmm. You got to get people to come along to help you make your movie, because you can't make it by yourself.
Yeah.
And you can't be CEO of a company all by yourself. You need people to help you do it.
Yeah. So just I want to end the tech conversation with your perspective on the financial side when you're looking to exit a business, right? So I know part of the hypothesis was the technology will be valuable enough if ever Dropoff gets to a point of exiting.
Yep.
You can leverage that, right?
Yep.
And I think most of our industry probably uses proprietary. It was off the shelf technology. There's a few that use proprietary.
Yes.
What's your thoughts now on that? Do you still feel the same? And in particular, what you see in today's landscape with technology and where it's going?
Yeah, technology's great, and it can enable lots of different things. At the end of the day, people pay us to pick stuff up and drop stuff off.
Yeah.
So ultimately, if someone's going to buy this business, that's how they're going to value us. if we're successful at picking stuff up and dropping stuff off, and we can do it at scale for lots of companies in lots of different cities and lots of different industries, that's what's going to drive our valuation. It's not going to be the tech that powers that. And in 2014, the tech out there wasn't very good. So like the decision I made in 2023, I couldn't have made in 2014 or 2015. Like it was not apples to apples.
Yeah.
But by the time we get to 23, the tech had gotten good. It's still not great. It had gotten good. And so it made sense to make that move. At the end of the day, the customers are paying us for a great experience.
Yeah.
They want to know that their stuff gets picked up. They want to know it gets delivered on time, that it gets delivered to the right person, they get charged the right amount, that it's done in a timely manner, in a professional manner. That's what they care about. They don't care about the underlying technology.
Yep. I agree. You're only as good as your last delivery.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. All right, so let's split to sales, right? So how does Dropoff sell today? That's one of the things that intrigued me when, even in the courting process, and certainly when I got into Dropoff, was it was a unique, maybe different than what I had seen in the industry in terms of the structure around selling and the planning and the process and using online technology and really trying to go out there. Just talk about how Dropoff sells today.
Yeah, and it's evolved. It's not like we had some secret recipe and we haven't changed it. It's evolved all along the way.
Yeah.
And it should, because a $5 million business is different than a $25 million business, which is different than a $50 million business. So it's got to evolve.
Yeah.
We took some tools from the Gamefly days. We focused early on SEO. We focused early on branding. And those things, I think, paid dividends. We still focus on those things, but now we've added other things. So in addition to that stuff, kind of like that helps generate inbound activity, but then you've got salespeople who are doing outbound activity, and they're calling on businesses, they're going to conferences, they're leveraging an existing customer to maybe expand with us in other markets. And so I think we probably operate like a SaaS business from a sales standpoint versus like a traditional logistics company.
And do you look at M&A and sales as two complementary pieces to the puzzle?
Yeah, I think for us, you need to build a sales engine that you can rely on, that you can plan, that you can forecast. It's hard to do that with M&A. You can go buy a bunch of companies. We all know there's a bunch of companies that you can go buy.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean they're the right companies to buy. It doesn't mean it's the right time to buy those companies. And so if you force yourself to do what I would call like an inorganic strategy, you end up buying a lot of things you probably will regret. Because you're trying to hit some numbers or some metrics, and you're forcing acquisitions that may ultimately not play out well.
Yeah.
And so you need an organic engine. So you need an organic sales engine. So you can predict, I can grow 10%, 15, 20, 30, whatever the percentage you want to target, that engine can support that level of growth.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, then the M&A is like icing on the cake. If you find a good acquisition like we did with QCS, right? Or we find a good acquisition with some of the other companies acquired, and the timing works and the owner's motivated and the sort of stars align on the price and all that stuff, like then it makes sense to do it. But it doesn't make sense to force bad deals.
Yeah.
Because if you force it, usually it ends up being a bad deal.
Yeah. That's true. You have to, my dad always tell me two kind of principles of this business was, you can never hire enough drivers and you can never stop selling. I think you and I've had these discussions before about, how to sell, right? Dropoff's kind of more SaaS oriented. My experience has always been more the personal relationship gets you the maybe larger opportunities or, this is very relationship driven business. Yeah, I think, but I think Dropoff has certainly bridged the gap between those two and has kind of successfully done both, right? And then the M&A piece. You haven't acquired a company in a couple of years. That's something you guys still are looking to do? Or?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't been actively pursuing. We've been really focused on organic growth. And, I'm happy to say it's worked out really well. 24 is going to be a really good year.
Yeah.
for organic growth, and I think 25 will be as well. If the right thing came across my desk, for sure, we'd be interested in looking at it. But we haven't been actively pursuing it.
Got it. I want to get into the people process side of it, right? So we talked a little about the people and kind of the challenge we have to let people go, right? But when you build an organization with several hundred drivers, right, and then you have at peak almost 200 employees, you have to find the systems and to manage that, but also there's a level of transparency, right? So one of the first things I realized when I came to Dropoff was how transparent Dropoff was with everything, right? Financials specifically.
Yes.
And I can remember, in my experience with QCS, it was my parents and our partner kind of look at the financials each month, right? We kind of strategically share certain things, but get on the first team call with Dropoff, and there's a few hundred people on there.
Yeah.
And you're showing financials. I was like, whoa, this is different.
Yes.
Why do that?
Well, so everyone's an adult, right? And so, I think the more people understand how things work and what's working and what's not working, the more bought in, the more invested, the better questions they can ask, the less rumors, the less fear, because we're sharing it all, the good, the bad.
Yeah.
And so I just feel like that's what I wanted to see. When I worked at Creative Artists, I would have liked to have seen that. When I worked at Disney, it was a public company, so I did see a lot of that.
Yeah.
So it just felt like that's just the way to do it. It may feel awkward at first. It may feel, you're sharing too much, but I think it's served us well.
Yeah. Has it ever backfired, ever hurt you? Because, the concern you always have is this data gets out there and they can take it to a competitor. They can take it anywhere and do something with it.
Yes. As somebody left the company and tried to take a customer that, they didn't work on, but they knew we had. Yeah, sure. But at the end of the day, there's way more good and positives that have come out of it than a couple of negatives.
Yeah. Yeah. That was certainly something that impressed me a lot with it. And I do think that that transparency builds some cohesiveness too in the organization.
And it's not a core value, but it kind of is a drop off in the sense that it's like the fifth beetle. Everything we do, transparent internally, transparency of the drivers, transparency of the customers, share their data with them, tell the drivers how much they're going to make before they accept the job. All those things were kind of transparent through the whole chain of a pickup and a delivery.
Yeah. From a vertical standpoint, we're talking about sales. I think earlier you said healthcare, industrial, maybe manufacturing, retail. Maybe get percentage-wise kind of where the business is across those verticals.
70% healthcare,
okay,
20% retail, 10% industrial.
Okay. So I'm going to dig into each one. So
Sure.
Healthcare, we're talking about hospital lab, blood lab.
Diagnostics,
Yes.
blood, pharmacy, DME, which stands for durable medical equipment, clinical trials, pretty much everything healthcare related except for sick people and organs.
Okay.
So that's healthcare. Retail for us is more specialty retail, luxury retail, and subscription e-commerce. So people that are getting something every week or every month,
Okay.
we like that better than what I would call traditional big box retail.
Kind of like pool distribution, not pool where you're going replenishing retail products at storefronts.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then industrial tends to be high value parts. Maybe not monetary value, but intrinsic value. So we're in a building, the air conditioning stops working, there's a tech here, he or she needs a part. We bring the part to the tech so the tech doesn't have to leave. We do that for airplanes, we do that for elevators, we do that for HVAC systems, we do that for MRI machines at hospitals. So really critical parts, we do it on construction sites. A critical part usually is not big. It's kind of ironic.
Yeah.
The piece that breaks is usually the smallest. But that part's got to get there quickly.
Yeah.
And people will pay to get that part there quickly.
Yeah. Which of the three would you say one's more challenging than the other?
Healthcare is the hardest.
Healthcare. Why is that?
Just because it's got so much, it's got it's got regulation. It's got very, very defined process, chain of custody, sometimes temperature control. It's got, rules and regulations, some government, some by the customer.
Yeah.
And, we have one customer that's got, a 20-step checklist before you can actually put whatever it is in your car. And it's got another 20-step checklist before you can take it out of your car. So it's way more complex.
Yeah.
And so it's the hardest. And so I always say, if you can do that well, you can kind of do any of this well.
Yeah.
Because it's definitely the hardest. Like healthcare at one extreme, groceries or cheeseburgers on the other end.
Yeah.
Like it's a big gap.
Yeah. And it's always, we would always try to tell drivers, like, connect to the why. So like in the healthcare delivery environment, the why is literally could be like
There's a patient.
Yes.
There's a patient at the end of all these deliveries. Whether you interact with them or not is not the point. But there's somebody's aunt or grandma or child or, spouse. Like there's somebody that needs this.
Yeah.
And so it's got a lot more weight to it than delivering something that's not as important.
Yeah. As much as you can say, is there some secret sauce, secret formula that Dropoff uses, executes, that makes them one of the premier providers of that type of service versus?
I think we care a lot. I think so. I think everybody cares. The team that's operating the business, the customer care team, the drivers. I think we tend to recruit drivers that we think are going to be a good fit culturally, not just can they show up on time.
Yeah.
So I think we care a lot. I think that comes through. And so the customer feels that.
Yeah.
And look, we're not perfect. We make mistakes all the time. We make mistakes. Our drivers make mistakes. It's really not about the mistake. It's really about how you recover. How do you fix it so you don't make the same mistake 2, 3, 4, 5 times? Because your customers are not going to give you 4 or 5 times to make the same mistake.
Yeah.
And so it's really about how you kind of orient, what do you want this business to be?
Yeah. So mistakes, and that's kind of want to, as we get to wrap the end of it, I want to talk about that. Like part of last to first is talking about that actual personal, professional journey, how you've gone from last to first and dealing with the trials, tribulations, the challenges. So start business or end maybe personally. So business-wise, right? So obviously I know this business industry a little bit. There's certain just intrinsic challenges you have in this space, right? Whether you are a $1 million company or you're a $100 million company, right? They're going to be similar challenges, maybe just magnified. What are some of the challenges you've had? And I'll maybe prompt you a few. So one, we talked about these verticals. I know Dropoff wasn't always laser focused on these 3 verticals, right? There was some evolution and a lot of probably unsuccessful moments to get to these 3.
For sure.
We talked about the tech already a little bit too. And then the last one is you can maybe hit all 3 as we go through it. When you think about overcoming the COVID, the major loss in revenue that you had, and to get back to where you guys are now, I want you to just talk about those 3 if you can.
Sure. So, yes, I would say for the first 3 or 4 years, we kind of delivered anything and everything. And while that seemed like a good idea at the time, ultimately it was not. And so we had to really focus in on what we did well, what we wanted to do well, what we felt was sustainable long term. And so we kind of honed in on those 3 verticals. And we believe those are the right 3 verticals, and that we've been focused on those since 2018. So it feels like we made the right bet.
Yeah.
We talked about technology. At the end of the day, technology is great.
Yeah.
But if you don't have to build it and you can buy it, that can get you where you want to go potentially faster. As far as sort of the ups and downs of the business, I mean, startups are constantly up and down, right? It's the roller coaster, right? You want the merry-go-round, go work at a big company. You want the roller coaster, go work at a startup, right? So you got to be able to enjoy the highs and survive the lows. And so, we had an incredible run up from 2020 to 2023. We grew 30, 20%, 50%, 70%. That's a lot of growth year over year over year.
That's great.
Or maybe it's 30, 70, 50. I can't remember. Whatever. It's too much growth.
Yeah.
It's not a software business in the sense that, hey, we have people picking stuff up and dropping stuff up.
Yeah.
That's a lot of growth.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people. You don't want to necessarily grow this kind of business that fast. And so with that growth came the end of COVID, and then kind of that growth slowed dramatically down. And so we were down 40% from 22 to 23.
Okay.
So we lost a lot of business.
Yeah.
Ultimately good, right? It's like COVID's gone. We've solved the COVID problem. So that's a good thing for society. So I don't regret that.
Yeah.
And then so we spent all of 23 retooling the business.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff we described, technology stuff we did. We moved some roles offshore, nearshore. So that's some of the changes we made. I jumped back in to run the sales organization. So we did a lot of things to retool the business and hopefully set us up for success for 24. And that's how it's played out.
Yeah. You just made offshore and nearshore because that's a hot topic in the space right now. So you're talking about remote worker working virtually.
Yep.
Describe like the success you've had with that, or kind of what roles these individuals are playing in the business.
Yeah. So I think traditionally people have outsourced customer care, right? Or customer service.
Yeah.
So that's an easy place to start. So that's where we started, and we had success there. I then challenged the team, could we find good dispatchers offshore and nearshore? And I think the consensus was, that's going to be too hard, and they need to know the market, et cetera, et cetera. Well, COVID proved that a dispatcher in Denver could dispatch market like Miami. He didn't have to be in the same market to dispatch it. So when COVID happened, everyone went home and people moved around the country, and all of a sudden the guy or gal who was dispatching Denver was now living in Miami. So we proved that you didn't have to be in market to be a good dispatcher. And so why do you need to be in the United States to be a good dispatcher? And so we've proven now that you don't have to be in the U.S. to dispatch the U.S.
Yeah.
And probably vice versa at some point. So customer care, dispatch, and some light account management, we've offshored, nearshored some of those roles. Still have people that do it domestically, but we also have counterparts that do it offshore, nearshore, and everybody works really well together.
Yeah, yeah. So and you've not only has it been successful from a fiscal standpoint, but integrating
For sure.
with the core kind of
Yes.
drop-off staff.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, there's people that come up to me and say, like, I couldn't do my job if it wasn't for this person in this country now.
Wow. That's something that's definitely new. I think it's certainly a wave of the future because
For sure.
as the world is just coming more closely connected,
Yes.
and technology is continuing
Yeah, I
to
mean,
advance.
Bandwidth and the internet is a great equalizer.
Yeah. Awesome. So on the personal side, right? So you are a family man. You've been married for
27 years.
27 years, 2 beautiful daughters who I don't
you.
think are crazy enough to get into this business.
Yep.
But you now have success professionally. You've obviously one of the things I've looked up to you about is just how you have conduct yourself as a man, right? As a leader, as a father.
Very sweet guy.
Yeah. but we all have personal failures, personal things that we have to go through and overcome, right? So what are some of those things been for you along your journey going from last to first? And even today, as you sit here, running drop-off, balancing your time with all the commitments, demands you have. Like, I don't think we talk about that enough as, leaders, particularly in this space where it's 24/7, it's sun up, sundown, right?
Yep.
So how do you get away? How do you check out and find your balance? But also, what would you say have been some of your greatest last to first moments, personally?
Well, first and foremost, I'm very lucky to have an extremely supportive wife or partner.
Yeah.
She and I have been together married 27 years, but we've been together for 34 years. So we've been together more than we've been alive, right? But as far as like our relationship without each other.
Right.
I don't know if I said that right, but you know what I meant. So that's like a lot of stability. And when we first met, my father was pretty sick, and my father ended up passing away a few years into us dating. And so, maybe that partly bonded us to some degree, beyond just a normal, courtship.
Yeah.
That was probably the biggest challenge in my life, because I looked up to my father. He was my hero. I know you look up to your father. He's your hero. Like, to lose that person, he was 54 when he passed. That's pretty young.
Very young.
So that kind of sucked. But it gives you perspective on life. Mm-hmm. It also, it probably toughens you up to some degree, either because you bury that inside, but you've also kind of gone through that, right? So it kind of gives you a different perspective on the world. And then, Gamefly had success, but like Dropoff, it had its ups, it had its downs. So what did we say before we started this? It's the journey, not the destination.
Yeah.
So, I do believe that. Like, there's always something to be learned. There's always, room to improve. Mm-hmm. And so, I've been lucky too.
Yeah, yeah. And how do you stay balanced along that journey?
Yeah, like, you got to have hobbies. Like, you can't just be work and family. You got to have some outside hobbies. So I like to play poker. That's a hobby. I like to mountain bike. That's
Professional hobby.
Yes. I like to mountain bike. That's a hobby. My wife's been playing a lot of tennis over the last 10 years. So I've started to take up tennis this year. And so now we're playing mixed doubles tennis.
Nice.
So I'm learning how to play doubles. I never played doubles tennis before. So yeah, you got to stay active, both mentally and physically.
Yeah.
Poker's a great mental game, but it's not very physical. Obviously, you're sitting for hours at a time. So tennis and mountain biking kind of make up for that.
Yeah. You're being a little bashful. You're a really good poker player.
I'm okay for somebody that doesn't make a living at playing poker.
You've placed top few hundred.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I think you told me the story about Fred Smith, FedEx, and early days of FedEx.
Yeah.
When he was struggling, he went to.
But he didn't play poker. He played roulette. He put the last amount of money he had for payroll. He went to Vegas, and he bet black or red or whatever, but yeah. And he doubled it and went back and was able to fight another day.
Yeah. Well, all right, so we wrap up with this. So you mentioned earlier, right, that you had that bad experience in Austin here. We're trying to deliver, and that sparked Dropoff, right?
Yep.
Had that experience going well, what do you think you'd be doing right now?
I probably would have started something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned your father, you mentioned your mother, but your father is your hero.
Yep.
I have the same sentiment with my dad. It's and fortunately he's still here, but you've I don't think it's proud I can say this, like, you've had two companies that have gone, run rate north of $100 million.
Yep.
Most people don't achieve that in 10 lifetimes. You've done it twice in one. And coming from the days when your dad, seeing your dad's, sun up, sun down to school, how proud do you think he would be of you?
Yeah, I think he'd be proud. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah. He'd be more than proud.
I think he'd be more proud of my marriage and my two daughters.
Yeah.
I think he'd be more proud of that.
Yeah. Well said. Well, Sean, thank you for being on the podcast. This has been a pleasure. I've truly enjoyed it. Yeah. Enjoyed the conversation, and we'll do it again soon.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.